What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show. It is Monday, July 6th, 2020, start of a brand new week, getting into all kinds of interesting things going on here. We got a lot to talk about. And as the normal format's going to be, I'm going to talk about news. And when I run out of news, we will open the phone line so you can call in with your comments, questions, opinions, and observations here. Now, Claire and I had a wonderful 4th of July. And it actually started on Friday the 3rd, with fireworks going off. But it was definitely rocking and rolling by Saturday night here. And we took our fireworks and we went over to a family member's house where there was this big family gathering. And a lot of people were there, a lot of kids. And I bought a bunch of, those glow sticks. You break them and they glow, and handed those out to the kids so they could be safe and have something like it, in their hands. And then we had the main fireworks show, which were all the mortar shells and just really spectacular. And, best 4th of July for me in decades, really is how it went. All right, let's get into the news here. And I hope your 4th of July was enjoyable and safe here. Apparently not always. Over in California, Democrats canceled 4th of July festivities, and apparently Californians simply went ahead and lit up the sky with thousands of illegal fireworks, which, again, it's one of the reasons I'm glad we're not in California. Same thing with Hawaii. When we moved to Hawaii, you could buy fireworks on Chinese New Year, and 4th of July. And they weren't as good as what you get here in Indiana, but it was still nice fountains, things like that. And then the liberals decided that fireworks were bad. They would traumatize people. All the old soldiers in the old soldier home would think that the Japanese were attacking again, and the smoke was bad for these people, and so forth and so on. And so now out in Hawaii, all they have that passes for fireworks is poppers, party poppers. You'll buy the big bag at the supermarket that says fireworks, and they're in all different shapes and boxes and cones, but they're all the same thing. You pull the little string, it goes pop, some colored paper streamers come out, and that's it. That's all you're allowed to have in Hawaii. Okay, so here it was very different. We had those mortar shells, and they were spectacular. Okay, over at MSNBC, Tiffany Cross, who was filling in for Joy Reid on MSNBC, labeled the 4th of July independence for white men, and then compared Trump voters to colonizing slave owners. So, go. All right, let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I keep hearing that pronounced so many different ways. Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell. Is the S silent or not? If anybody has the authoritative view of how her first name is being pronounced, please let us know here. Anyway, apparently when she appeared in court, she was crying, "Why is this happening? How could this happen?" Which tells us that she really felt in her heart of hearts she was going to get away with all this. So, Ghislaine, I'm going to use Ghislaine for the time being. Ghislaine Maxwell sobbed, "Why is this happening?" when she appeared in court last week, according to abuse victim Virginia Roberts, who says the Duke of York needs to be panicked right now, was the word she used here. But it's important to understand, despite all the tears and everything, Ghislaine is not a victim. And everybody who knew what she was doing is guilty of misprison, of all the things that she's charged with, conspiracy to transport minors for sex and all the rest of it. They're guilty because they knew a crime was being committed and did not report it. You can go to jail for that. You don't have to actually commit a crime. If you know somebody's committing a crime and you don't turn them in, you can go to jail. If you do turn them in, you might get a reward. So there's an interesting little article that came on out from Zero Hedge asking if Maxwell has killed herself by getting arrested. And I'm seeing a lot of this. People are almost expecting that she's going to die in some unusual, spectacular fashion. Certainly, there are a lot of people who want her dead right now. And when they moved her from New Hampshire to New York, it was not telegraphed ahead of time. In fact, we didn't know she was in New York until it was already all over. And they came and announced, she's now in New York. And apparently she's in a jail cell somewhere in Brooklyn. But she's in the Southern District of New York. And even in this article, it's just saying the first thing on everyone's mind should be which faction actually has her and how long will she survive? Like I said the other day, I'm glad I'm not carrying her life insurance. So anyway, Ghislaine Maxwell is transferred from New Hampshire to a Brooklyn jail to await her first New York City court appearance this Friday on child sex trafficking charges. Now, it turns out this is not the same facility where Jeffrey Epstein supposedly killed himself in August of last year. That was at the Metropolitan Correction Center in Manhattan. So Ghislaine Maxwell is due to go before a judge on Friday on the child sex trafficking charges. She was arrested by the FBI at $1 million home in Bradford, New Hampshire on Saturday. Now, just before she bought the home through some carefully anonymized LLCs, it had actually been written up in a real estate magazine intended for very rich home buyers, and we have a link to the article. So if you want to see what she was living in, you can click on that. Got lots of pictures of the interior, and it really is in a very remote part of New Hampshire here. Now, Rose McGowan, after tweeting a picture of Weinstein, Epstein, and Maxwell, says, now get Clinton and Prince Andrew. They got Ghislaine. Says next it's go after Prince Andrew, Clinton. Now, according to this article that came out of Hideout Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is ready to name names in the pedo scandal. But apparently, according to one of her confidants, she'd rather talk about Bill Clinton than Prince Andrew. Apparently, she's very fond of Prince Andrew, who's been very nice to her over the years. But she wants to talk about Bill Clinton. And the lady's alleged to have procured underage girls for the financier's illegal dealings. So she's basically functioning as his pimp. Now, Jeffrey Epstein's pimp, Ghislaine Maxwell, will never sell out Prince Andrew, one of her close confidants, Laura Goldman, has revealed to the Telegraph. Well, there's somebody else who should be up on misprision charges. This Laura Goldman knew what was going on. Now, she's a New York stockbroker who has known Maxwell for several years, suggested that the elusive socialite who was finally nabbed last Thursday would be more likely to discuss Epstein dealings with former President Bill Clinton and current President Donald Trump than anything that happened with Andrew. So it's getting a little bit more interesting. There is a new accuser that has come forward, preferring anonymity. They've called her Jane Doe. And apparently she was very young when she was first recruited for the sex. And then she got pregnant. She was forced to abort the baby. And at that point, they gang raped her, according to her allegations, and dumped her naked on the lawn of her grandparents' home. So these are very, very serious people. According to her, Ghislaine Maxwell also took part in the sex with the underage girls. Apparently, Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell exchanged $20 million in what are called financial attractions over a 5-year period. Big bucks in blackmail, I guess. All right, let's talk about the coronavirus. Britain records 15 more coronavirus deaths in the preliminary toll, with none in Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland, taking the total number of COVID-19 victims to 44,235. Now, according to a doctor over at Stanford, the fatality rate for people under 45 from COVID-19 is almost 0%. Dr. John Ioannidis, in a recent interview with the Greek Reporter, said that, yeah, based on more than 50 studies, it appears that COVID-19 is something that kills off the elderly, but doesn't really attack young people. They can get it, but they don't die of it. He says, of course, none of these studies are perfect, but cumulatively they provide useful composite evidence. A very crude estimate might suggest that about 150 to 300 million or more people have already been infected around the world. That's the population of the United States right there. Far more than the 10 million documented cases. This may turn out to be like dengue fever, where only a tiny portion of the people who get it actually come down with symptoms. And most people who have dengue never realize they have it. And now we're hearing about asymptomatic patients of COVID-19 who have it, test positive for it, but they don't have symptoms. Now, as if China didn't have enough problems with coronavirus, apparently health officials from the Chinese region of Inner Mongolia have issued a warning regarding bubonic plague. This is the illness known as the Black Death that decimated Europe. Apparently up in this Inner Mongolia, they've had a few cases reported. I've heard of a few cases around the world here and there, and fortunately they can get on it and take care of it. It won't soar out of control like it did back in medieval times. All right, President Trump, of course, had his speech at the Mount Rushmore, which everybody's yelling about, both good and bad. And then he had a speech Saturday, and one of the specific things he addressed was that some of these activists hacked a statue of Frederick Douglass from its base in Rochester and threw it in the water. It's hopelessly damaged, can't be repaired. And the reason this is interesting is because Frederick Douglass was black and he was an abolitionist. And 4th of July is the anniversary of a very famous speech that he gave. So, I mean, this guy was not involved in slavery. He wasn't white, and they still tore his statue down. I think what's going on here is really very simple. People with a strong identity, and part of your identity is your history. It's hard to push them around. It's hard to tell them what to do. The same thing with the community. If you have a strong sense of community, you tend to stick together, support each other, and it's harder to get you to move in a direction the government wants you to move in. So I think all of this statue stuff and the Confederate stuff and all the rest of it is about destroying our sense of, first of all, community by turning us against each other, which is happening before our very eyes, as part of a larger plan to destroy our own identities, to get us so confused of what we're thinking, feeling, and talking about that we don't even know what bathrooms we're supposed to use anymore. And that's going to make it much easier to control us. So Trump has issued an executive order to rebuild all non-Confederate monuments that have been torn down by the protesters. And he's going to create a new national park to display statues and monuments dedicated to American heroes, including those that have been torn down by protesters the past month. Activists have also torn down a statue of Christopher Columbus in Baltimore and thrown that into the water. Now, over in Ohio, a city called Newton Falls in the northeast of the state has declared itself a sanctuary city for statues and monuments. Now, I don't know how they plan on enforcing that, but they're basically out there saying, this is a sanctuary city. You will not touch statues and monuments here. I think we need more of that kind of thing. And here's a classic case of knuckling under to the mob. Veterans Affairs officials have ordered the removal of the American flag from a construction site. The American flag. The stars and stripes, not the stars and bars. Claiming it's a target for protesters. Oh, we don't want the protesters here, so take down the American flag. Now, I have issues with the government of the United States of America, but I love my country and I love the people in it. And I like seeing the flag fluttering in the breeze. And the idea that the VA is just going to say, well, take that flag down. Isn't that a slap in the face of everybody in the VA who was injured fighting for the symbology of the flag, what it represents? Like they're surrendering already. Okay, apparently over in Georgia, there was this heavily armed black militia marching through the streets demanding reparations, basically attacking white people and robbing them and saying, we have a noble cause, which they don't. It's still robbery. Now, over the weekend, I was sent a report, which is not yet cleared for publication, but the summary of it is, it basically supports comments we've made on the show before about how there is, in fact, no bias toward blacks in police shootings, that, in fact, the bias runs the other way. More white people are being shot and killed by the police than black people. The police are afraid to pull the trigger on a black American because of all that's happened. The white guy, go ahead, plug him. But there is no epidemic of fatal police shootings against unarmed black Americans. Okay, over in New York, things are getting a little bit grim. COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, liberal mayor have turned the city into a no-go zone. Murders are skyrocketing, shops are looted, and 500,000 middle-class residents have left. That is a huge chunk of the tax base. All right, despite what happened in Tulsa, which appears to have been the response of a dirty trick, Donald Trump is going to hold an outdoor rally in New Hampshire. This time, the campaign will hand out masks and strongly encourage supporters to wear them. And apparently, they're going to try the attitude of, look, just show up. You know, no pre-registration that can be undermined by hackers. And if Trump's critics are right and nobody's showing up to his campaign rallies, then there'll be plenty of seating. But if people show up and they can't get in because it's crowded, it'll prove that the Democrats were lying once again. Now, here's a victory for those of us who want honest election. The Supreme Court has ruled that states can stop faithless presidential electors. Now, what that means is, and this is a rare unanimous decision for the Supreme Court, the 9 justices all voted that states can require their presidential electors to back their state's popular vote winner in the Electoral College. Remember back in 2016 when Hillary had won the popular vote, but Donald Trump was ahead in the electoral count? And Hillary was out there saying, well, we've got to convince some of those electors to change their mind. That will now be illegal. Actually, it already was in about 33 states. This makes it nationwide here. So the electors are bound to vote for the popular vote winner. And if they don't, they can be removed and replaced. Actually, at this point, I don't know why we actually need the electors when you can simply say, this is who our state voted for. So we get this many electoral votes. And apparently a voter ID law has won in the Supreme Court, where there was this push for easing voter restrictions in the COVID-19 epidemic, which basically meant not having to show ID, which is ridiculous. Everybody takes their ID when they go out of the house. A photo ID, a driver's license, something like that. And the people who are going to try and cheat this election this November, they don't want that. They want people to be able to vote 20, 30, 40 times pretending to be other people. The Supreme Court said, nope, it's okay to demand a photo ID. Okay. Article from Russia Today. The Democrats will use fraud to win this fall's presidential election, and Trump may have to call on the military. Well, we know they're going to use fraud. We saw it in 2016. We saw it in the midterms. We're going to see it again. Oh, we're going to take a break for commercials. We're back with more news after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and a reminder that Republic Broadcasting is in a perpetual state of fundraising. We cannot do what we're doing without your help. That's just the way it is, and we need you to step up to the plate and help us out as we speak truth to power. We can't go on doing what we're doing without your support and assistance. So the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can donate by credit card or debit card is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, we're going to take an early phone call from Gil in Arizona because he apparently knows the correct pronunciation of Ms. Maxwell's first name. Gil, are you there?
Yes, I am. And I am French, and it's a very popular name in France and in Canada. It's Ghislaine. It's hard to say a G with a Z, but a G, think of Xi Jinping. Ghislaine, S-L-E-N. Ghislaine. That's her pronunciation. I hope you've got that.
Ghislaine.
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 Yeah, with a G mixed with a Z. Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
You got it, almost. But
all right.
Let's say S-L-E-N by itself. Ghislaine, S-L-E-N.
Well, it's spelled S-L-A-I-N, I think.
Yes, but I'm saying it phonetically in English.
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
Pronounced. The last part is S-L-E-N, Schlaine. So it's Ghislaine. It's a very popular French girl's name.
Ghislaine.
You got it.
I got it. All right. Thanks an awful lot. I appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Getting back to the news here. This story worries me. This is again from Russia Today. Clinton, as in Hillary, says she could beat Trump in 2020 and would have handled the COVID-19 pandemic a lot better than he did. And despite losing to Donald Trump in 2016, in fact, despite having failed every effort to become president, Hillary Clinton maintained she could defeat him if she were standing in 2020. Now, of course, we all know she didn't go through the primaries. So the only way she could stand as the presidential candidate for 2020 is if the Democratic convention ejects Joe Biden for his clearly deteriorating mental state, and they just say, we're going to go with Hillary Clinton. And I'm afraid that's what she's pushing for. And she's very low-key about it, but as we get closer to that Democratic convention, we're going to see a lot more puff pieces like this, because if Hillary isn't a candidate, if she didn't go through the primaries, then who cares if she thinks she can defeat Donald Trump? Anyway, it worries me. I think she's going to try something that would just wreck my whole year. All righty. Now, Mary Trump's tell-all book, which promises to expose cheating as a way of life for the president and his family, has been bumped up to July 14th, 2 weeks early, as the Trump siblings continue to battle over its publication. So, her book is called Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. Will be 2 weeks earlier than expected. It's already #1 on the Amazon bestseller list, promises to be the most revealing portrait of the Trump family so far. It is expected to lay bare the dirty family secrets about her uncle, President Donald Trump, and the Trump family. Publisher Simon & Schuster revealed new details from the book, which will tell how in the Trump family financial worth is the same as self-worth. That's common for all rich people that I've ever met. You know, their entire sense of self-worth is how much money they've got. That's why they always have to have more, no matter how much they have. Let's see. Humans are only valued in monetary terms. Last week, a New York federal appeals court lifted a temporary restraining order blocking the book's publication by Simon & Schuster. Trump's family secured the temporary restraining orders, claiming her book violated a confidentiality clause she signed 19 years ago. Well, I'm probably not going to bother getting the book because I'm not really interested in anybody's private life. No, I don't read the National Enquirer or the Tattler or the Midnight Sun or any of those papers. Okay, do you remember the musical Hamilton? And it was this big deal because all of the founding fathers were played by black people, and they had modern music for this, and it was a big thing, and everybody was going to see it and singing its praises. I mean, you had Bill and Hillary Clinton went to see it. Bernie Sanders, the Obama family, they just went to see Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical over the years. The musical is based on Alexander Hamilton, but with a modern twist and a heavy influence in hip-hop. My, how the times have changed because Hamilton was a slave owner. More when we get back from these commercials. Welcome back to our show here, and we're talking about the musical Hamilton, which was, you know, this big thing, and all the founding fathers are played by black people, and it's full of hip hop music, and you know, the luminaries of our society were seeing it. Well, that was then, and this is now, and already there is a hashtag cancel Hamilton. Try that one more time. Hashtag cancel Hamilton, sweeping the internet, calling for the musical to be shut down after its debut on Disney Plus over criticism of Hamilton for his role in the slave trade. They're starting to eat their own out there. Anyway, let's see. The Texas Supreme Court has ruled in favor of a father who was forced to share custody of his daughter with a non-relative. And so they put this to rest. There was this long custody battle of Father Chris Clay, who for some reason was forced to share custody of his daughter with people who were not part of his biological family here. Okay, J.K. Rowling is still firing back at critics, talking about hormones, surgery for young people, new kind of conversion therapy. She's definitely kicked over a hornet's nest with this, her statement that there are only two genders, which I agree with. You know, let's talk about biology and DNA here. So she had a tweet that argued that hormone prescriptions can be necessary and life-saving, but they should be a last resort. And she fired back with a Twitter thread in which she fiercely argued against the trend of young people being shunted toward hormones and surgery. I agree with that too. Absolutely, absolutely do. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call because this guy's been waiting on the phone for a long time. And it's going to be a while before the phone lines are wide open. But I'm going to go ahead and take Chris in Delaware. Chris, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Oh, what was the last caller? He wanted to tell you how to properly pronounce, what was it? Ghislaine?
Zillian.
Ghislaine. Well, I was just trying to help you out and how to pronounce Mike Pompeo. It's not Pompeo, it's Mike Pompeo.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I was putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
It's Mike, what is it? It's Mike Pompeo.
Okay.
Right? He lies, he cheats, he steals, you know. Anyway, and then there's another thing. I just down the memory hole. Maybe you could think about this and give your comments after. Like, I'll hang up or whatever. It's fine. The Scripples, whatever happened with them? Remember, like, that just goes down the memory hole.
Yeah,
Remember
that's exactly what happened. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they're still alive. Outside of that one press conference with the daughter that was very scripted and very forced. We don't know what happened with them.
She had a tracheotomy or something. Remember that?
Yep.
Like a scar on her throat. Like somebody, yeah. I don't know. Whatever. That was just my thoughts. But like I said, it's not Pompeo. It's Mike Pompeo.
Okay, Mike Pompeo.
All right.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. And we're going to, the phone lines are still closed. Okay. So don't call in until we open the lines. Okay. Over in Iran, they've had a third mystery blast in less than a week, rocking their power station at Natanz. State media showed emergency crews on the scene of the daytime incident while the fire raged at the power plant. The centrifuges, which appear to have been a target if this was deliberate, were underground and unharmed. Now, of course, everybody says if this was deliberate, Israel was probably the villain. Israel's defense minister is saying, Israel's not necessarily behind all Iran attacks, most of them. But Iran is officially declaring that these explosions were accidental. And I'm inclined to believe them for the very simple reason, it's one thing to get one bomb into a place like that and set it off. After that happens, if it's thought to be deliberate sabotage, security is going to be tightened, everybody's going to be searched. And so the idea of a second and third bomb getting through that, I don't think so. But Iran is now saying that the fire in Natanz is a major setback to their centrifuge program. Maybe. But I wonder if Iran is trying to put out the image that they're really not a nuclear threat anymore. Try and get the embargo shut down. Try and get the world back to normal, peace through commerce. Anyway, in the northern occupied West Bank village of Kafin, north of Tulkarem City, Israeli troops attacked several Palestinians. The Palestinian media sources said the Israeli soldiers stormed Kafin village and fired dozens of tear gas canisters toward local villagers resisting the military invasion, causing many of them to suffocate or faint. Now, China is starting to talk real tough here. And they came out with the state media saying that the double U.S. aircraft carrier deployment to the South China Sea is at their pleasure. It's a fancy way of saying we're allowing the United States to do this. And then they say they could easily destroy the carriers at any moment with missiles, which I think is also likely true. The carriers are the last war. During World War II, the reason we were slow getting up to the carriers, Japan saw it coming. They had 10 carriers going into the attack on Pearl Harbor. We had basically 3. Because the Navy brass thought the battleship was going to be the mainstay of any naval combat. And it turned out the carrier really was. Well, that was then, this is now. And the carriers are now the obsolete ship that everybody still believes in. And the next naval engagement is going to be fought with these intelligent weapons. The U.S. is moving to seize Iran petroleum on a new tanker group bound for Venezuela. And the claim they're putting forward is that both Iran is using the money they're getting from Venezuela to fund terrorists, and saying Tehran will help fund the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, whose Washington has designated as a terrorist organization. Actually, it's a uniformed military service. Anyway, these payments support the IRGC's full range of nefarious activities, including the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, blah, 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 blah. Basically, what they're trying to do is to create a legal cause to go in and commit an act of piracy on the high seas, which is exactly what seizing those oil tankers is going to be. Looking at the economic news here right now, 80% of New York City restaurants couldn't afford the June rent. That is a bad situation. The nonprofit New York City Hospitality Alliance surveyed 509 restaurateurs around the city and found 4 out of 5 didn't pay the full June rent. Of those, 90% said they paid half or less last month. The rent is putting enormous financial pressure on restaurants, bars, and clubs after 4 near-fatal months of economic disaster in which many have already shuttered for good. The State Department is warning top U.S. firms to replace supply chains exposed to China's Xinjiang. And now that the Senate has joined the House in its condemnation of China's national security law, and on Thursday, passed by unanimous consent, a bipartisan bill to impose sanctions on Chinese officials who threaten Hong Kong's limited autonomy, as well as the banks and firms that do business with them. We eagerly await when Trump will sign the legislation into law. According to a Wall Street Journal report from Thursday, the White House hasn't responded to a request for comment over whether the president will support the bill. And since it is unlikely that Trump will object to the veto-proof law, After all, the last thing he wants to be is to be seen as easy on China. The State Department warned top American companies, including Walmart, Apple, and Amazon, over risks faced from maintaining supply chains associated with human rights abuses in China's western Xinjiang region. They're really not going to be happy until they have a war. Okay, now this is really, really bad news. Over in China, they have this huge dam called the Three Gorges Dam. And it's one of the world's largest. And now portions of it are measurably displaced from recent flooding. The flooding was more than the dump gates could handle. And there are 400 million people downstream. If this dam were to let go completely, we're looking at millions of people dying. More than that, the economic damage, because the Three Gorges Dam provides electricity for industry in the area. This would be a major economic blow to China that would be felt around the world. They're very concerned that the dam is at risk of blowing. Now, John Bolton, who was out there fanning the story about Russia's bounty to the Taliban to kill Americans, he's now backing off. He's refusing to answer any more questions about Russian bounties. And the story is unraveling. There was no proof of it. It's just more, it's keeping Russiagate alive. Bad Russians, bad Russians, bad Russians. The United States was doing exactly the same thing in Iraq, offering rewards for prisoners who were then tortured. Alrighty, let's talk a little bit about computers here. And we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines. There we are. Okay, now, there are privacy concerns over home security cameras. The Wi-Fi signals can be hacked by criminals to tell them when people are home or not. That's a very important piece of intelligence to have if you are a burglar, knowing when the house is empty or not. So cyber criminals can work out if people are away from home by examining information transmitted over Wi-Fi by home security cameras. Apparently, they're able to tap into the signal and just take a look inside the house through your own security cameras. So internet-connected security cameras that track potential burglars, such as Google's Nest Cam and Amazon's Ring Range, can be interfered with by attackers. These devices, which are becoming an increasingly common feature of people's homes, generate huge amounts of hackable personal data. Many things here. So British and Chinese researchers got access to a data set of smart home camera uploads from an undisclosed device maker. They found online traffic generated by the cameras, which are often triggered by motion, could be monitored and used to predict when a house is occupied or not. All right, Apple iOS 14 alerts reveal the Reddit app is still reading user clipboard data. So your data has become valuable, not to you, to these other corporations. Apparently, Virgin Media crashed again with thousands of customers in the Great Britain unable to access the internet. Now, China's race for artificial intelligence dominance depends on math. Forget about AI itself. It's all about the math, and America is failing to train enough citizens in the right kind of mathematics to remain dominant. I'm not sure we are dominant right now, looking at some of the stuff coming out of Japan and China. Okay, astronomers, a little bit of science news here. Astronomers spot fireworks streamers 8,000 light years from Earth celebrating the birth of a massive star cluster. By the way, over the weekend, did you see the eclipse? Buck moon, because this is when the deer get their antlers in the year, and 4th of July, and a penumbral eclipse of the moon all at the same night. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, now we're getting to LIGO, the Laser Interferometry Gravity Observatory, which has detected several what they call ripples in space-time, which is thought to be what causes the effects of gravity. And they're looking at quantum effects. And they've observed a kick on a big object for the first time. And they're measuring the tiny kick imparted to their sensitive equipment by quantum fluctuations. Now that is really, really tiny stuff. All right. Stunning image from NASA satellite shows burn scar visible from space at the site of the Bighorn fire in Arizona. Well, depending upon what focal length lens you have, you can see a lot of stuff from space. That's why they put those satellites up there. Okay, breakthrough in dark matter mystery as neutral hydrogen from other galaxies is detected for the first time. And they're hoping this is going to help resolve the argument over dark matter. Now, this last story here really kind of weirds me out. And it's basically about a concept incubator. And the idea is that if you want to have a baby, that you don't go through the old-fashioned process of having the woman carry the child to term, that there's actually a pod, a plastic medical pod that you install in your home, and you put the embryo in there and let it come to term, basically, in a closet. And when it's old enough, you decant and start changing the diapers. That's a little scary. I'm worried about people who might want to experiment on their own DNA and produce a child with one of these concept incubators. Okay, let's see. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And looking at other news here. The Miami-Dade mayor says Black Lives Matter protests absolutely had a lot to do with the recent coronavirus spike. And I keep hearing arguments on both sides that, getting together in these protests and rallies doesn't have an effect. And the other side, of course, is, they're close together. They're sweating on each other. They're definitely spreading it. But the reality is, after all these protests got going, we have had a spike in coronavirus infections. Now, apparently, there's a certain set of genes that raise the risk of dying from COVID-19 that were inherited from the Neanderthals. So if you carry that certain set of genes that was inherited from the Neanderthals, you have a greater risk of dying of coronavirus. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And earlier in the program, we talked about how China is responding to the presence of two American carriers in the South China Sea, the Reagan and the Nimitz. And apparently, U.S. B-52 bomber from Louisiana came in, flew around the globe, and exercised with jets from these two aircraft carriers. So they're definitely rattling the spears, as it were. All righty, let's see. Florida and Texas are attracting even more migrants from high-taxed states. Say so. Now, the former CEO of Reddit, who's reading your clipboard information, admits they knew all about Epstein's Ghislaine Maxwell for years. Ghislaine, her. They knew about her for years, invited to parties anyway. Again, everybody seems to have known what Epstein and Maxwell were all about, and nobody really thought to do anything about it. Anyway. London City's University changes the name of its Cass Business School because Sir John Cass had links to slavery. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that slavery is bad, and I felt that my entire life. But I think this current hysteria is misplaced. As I said before, I think we're seeing an attack on our history as an attack on our sense of identity and community. And certainly the idea is that by erasing our history, We don't have that foundation on which to build our identity. Just sort of floats around a lot. Okay. High school senior makes a coronavirus-themed prom dress entirely out of duct tape, complete with artwork of healthcare workers and a virus-shaped purse. That's kind of interesting here. All right, the Atlanta mayor has ordered the Black Lives Matter occupied zone at the Wendy's cleared out after an 8-year-old was killed. That's one of the things about this last weekend and all these protests is the number of people who were killed, especially in Chicago. There was one case where somebody was killed with celebratory gunfire on July 4th. Just people firing a gun with a live round into the air rather than into the ground. And that's a dumb thing to do. You don't have blanks, don't do it. On the July 3rd at night, I heard what sounded like somebody with a bump stock. Because it was rapid fire, but it changed the rate. It was slow at first, then faster, then slower, then stopped. And that is kind of the signature of a bump stock here. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. We have callers coming in, and we're going to start with Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello. Mike?
Hello.
I'm still alive.
Good.
Mike, you say Pompeo, I say Pompeo, you say tomato, I say tomato, you say potato, I say potato.
Let's just call the whole thing off.
Where's Lieutenant Commander Data, Mike? What was it? Was it Lore? Remember that?
Yes.
Brother? Remember? I don't know if too many people who call in watch Star Trek The Next Generation, because I'm a big fan. But Mike, I'm gonna have to give people. Are you ready? I'm
Yes.
not an immigrant that just coming to America. I wasn't in the Eddie Murphy movie. Okay.
Okay.
People call in. I'm a socialist. I remember this was a while ago. I was a Jewish guy who was a Ukrainian. My heritage is Ukraine, but I was born in America. So was my mother, my brother. I'm an American. Doesn't mean I got issues. But I notice people call in. They create things out of thin air because they want to believe, the things that they believe. But I don't know, Mike. It's crazy. The whole with the virus thing and Trump. What do you make of Trump? Because But the Mount Rushmore, nobody's got to wear a mask, right? All of a sudden, the next press event, everybody's got to wear some kind of a mask. But people are you saw that thing with Kimberly, how do you say it, Guilfoyle? That's the woman who
yes.
was married. She was on Fox News. I think she was married and something. There was a whole love triangle going on with that. I don't want to get into that, but she's tested positive. But what? Mike, if you are president of a country, you have to have some kind of a message that's straightforward. You can't do a flip-flop wishy-wash thing.
No.
You know what I mean? You can't. It's just everything's bizarre, Mike. And the statues thing, we're gonna put these not Confederate statues in a park facility.
Yes.
Where? Do we know where?
No, we don't know where yet, but he's going to call it the Heroes Garden.
But most likely he's going to be in Washington D.C. in the not the Beltway, in the Steel Beltway, right? In that sealed off area, right, of Washington D.C. That's, come on, man. What's going on here? I saw Christopher Columbus statue getting torn down, which I didn't know Christopher Columbus. You don't know Christopher Columbus. I know Mark Miles from Maine. A lot of your listeners don't know Christopher. The guy. We don't know any of these people. They're statues based on what? What would you say? Myth? Just of what we're told.
Yes.
You know, of the people. I mean, we do know though, Christopher Columbus, he discovered America, but not really, right? Like
Yeah, he discovered the island of Hispaniola, and it was left to other explorers to find the mainland.
Who was the gentleman who actually discovered? I forgot his name. Was it
Amerigo Vespucci.
Okay. Did he like Mike with Christopher Columbus? Did he like bring the word of God and take? Because you know that word of God thing is just a diversion of basically stealing your land.
Yes.
Convert or die, right? That's how it works, right? You convert or die, take your resources. But I mean, is anybody actually crying over Christopher Columbus statue? You know what I mean? I mean, it's a landmark, but it's just not. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to lose no sleep over it, but it's a landmark though. So I'm kind of torn over that with all of them.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they all have histories. We all have history. You know, it's just like what's going on now is messed up with everything. Like we're all in disarray. You know?
The part that really concerns me, every one of those monuments and statues that was put up, regardless of who it is or what side they were on, they obviously were created by a group of U.S. citizens who felt strongly enough about that individual or that event to put up a monument or a statue. And all of these woke people running around ripping the statues down are basically saying that their wounded sensibilities are more important than, you know, the will of the people who put those statues up in the first place. And it's insulting and it's a slap in the face. And I think it's just going to build more hostility within our culture.
I'm curious, is there a statue of anybody like Einstein that's out in the wild that they're tearing down, or you know, any of the astronauts, are they tearing them down? Like, where are they located? Like, you know, like why do we have those there? Where's all like the intellectuals? Where are their statues located? You know what I mean?
Usually at the universities where they taught. I think, you know, there's a statue of Einstein up at where he was teaching. And if you go to any modern university like MIT, you'll see statues and busts all over of very famous scientists. And they haven't gotten around to them yet. They're basically starting with the Confederacy. Now they're starting to go after Americans who were tangentially connected to the slave trade. Now they're going after Americans who were opposed to the slave trade. And bit by bit, they're going through our entire culture. At some point down the road, they're going to start screaming about that penny and how the face should be changed because it's Abraham Lincoln, who was demeaning to the slaves when he freed them.
Hi, Mike, and I hope you had a good 4th of July, Mark.
Oh, I did.
Because I don't hate anybody. Everybody has a right to call in and voice their opinion. Al from Canada, I know Miles from Maine gave you some thing about we got the Bill of Rights here, but Mike, before I get off the phone, you know what makes me mad? Everybody, all these people calling, well, we all got the guns, the Midwest, we got the guns, but they ain't stopping the statues yet. They're not stopping the statues from getting torn down. So you can have your guns and a rocket launcher and a 50 caliber, and at the end of the day, you're not doing squat to stop anything. That's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Daniel in British Columbia. Hello, Daniel. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Yes, I wanted to bring up a little topic that happened at 1:30 in the morning on the July 4th weekend here.
Mm-hmm.
In Seattle, the police closed off the I-5 freeway to let some of the the former CHOP protesters have a little rally and do some little dancing and stuff for the YouTube. It turns out somebody went around the barricade and went on the freeway, came around a corner and didn't see them, slammed on their brakes and went and hit two of them and killed one of them.
Yep.
And the media kind of just, I haven't really heard too much on the mainstream media. The New York Times covered this, and they didn't mention that the protesters went up to the car afterwards, after it had stopped about 100 feet down the freeway, and started trying to smash the window, and get the guy inside. And it turns out it was a 27-year-old black immigrant in a $60,000 Jaguar. So I just think it's kind of funny, because on Twitter they were talking about how at first this was a hit and run, and it was probably some white supremacist. But as soon as they found out it was a black immigrant in a $60,000 Jaguar, they stopped calling it murder, and then they started calling it an accident.
Yeah.
So hypocrisy is just off the charts on this. I mean, so much for systematic racism in America. You've got, a 27-year-old black immigrant driving a car like that. The funny thing is they're not really talking too much about the police closing a freeway, which are paid for by your tax dollars.
Yes.
For these people to have their little Black Lives Matter signs and a little dance routine that they did right on the freeway. So it's just off the charts, this whole narrative, and it hasn't stopped either. I mean, these things are going on all over the place. There's no sign of them getting off. I don't know. I can't believe it. Every time I go onto Twitter, I'm seeing more and more of this stuff. So another topic I want to just briefly go on to is the Ghislaine Maxwell. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows how to pronounce her name. It's like Elaine, but it's Ghislaine instead of Elaine. The S is silent because it's a French name. And, I think it's important enough that we know how to pronounce her name, because this woman is responsible for, basically having all these politicians compromised and doing Israel's bidding. That's the biggest story about Ghislaine Maxwell, is not the victims so much, but what those victims were used for. The entire operation, all the video evidence that the FBI confiscated on the island and on the ranch in New Mexico, and probably the largest apartment building, or the largest apartment in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many questions, and if this gets buried, it's pretty much all over. This is, in my opinion, this is the last big chance for mainstream America to see how your country's been usurped by Israeli intelligence. I mean, after 9/11, it's been almost 20 years, and no one's caught on to that, but this seems like it's one last big chance. I mean, if this Ghislaine Maxwell happens to get a sweetheart deal, or gets suicided in prison, or, it's out of I just can't believe it. I mean, I think this is the last chance for people to wake up. And the connections with Prince Andrew, if that gets buried, I mean, I think he was in on it. They're acting all innocent, like they didn't even know Epstein, and yet they hung around Epstein even after he was given that first sweetheart deal. And that's all I have to say for today. I'll let you get on to your other callers. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. And it's like, I mean, the sense one gets is that all these very famous people like Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew, they knew what was going on. And, they wanted part of it. And they were idiots because they had to understand they were being videotaped and microphoned. And you have to wonder about people like that. Why are they in positions of power when they're that stupid? All right, let's go back to the phones to Kelly in Austin. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay, I got to correct Dan. It's not Ghislaine, it's Ghislaine. GH in French, and I speak French, is in English, you would spell it almost as a ZHE or a JHE.
Okay.
Ghislaine. It's Ghislaine. It's a common name. It's right. And every Ghislaine I've ever known is a beautiful woman, except maybe for Ghislaine Maxwell. Every first lady.
No.
I fall in love with every Ghislaine and Chantal I've ever known. A couple other things. you mentioned incubation of fetuses in little cubes
Yeah.
earlier in the show. Well, where'd you
Yes.
find that? Where'd you read that?
Well, it's linked to the front page of whatreallyhappened.com, but it was basically a concept. You know, they're not doing it yet, but they're saying this may be something that we do in the future.
Well, that comes right out of Brave New World.
Yes.
Aldous Huxley wrote that, and the fetuses that were cultivated, that were grown in those little test tubes, were cultivated either as alpha, betas, or gammas.
Yes.
And so you're talking about messing around with the genetics of these fetuses, and that's what they were doing, because they determined whether or not you were going to be somebody who was in the alpha class or the beta class or way down in the gamma.
As I recall, it was just how much alcohol they threw in there at developmental stages.
Yeah, something like that, and so you ended up with something that looked like it had fetal alcohol syndrome if it became a gamma. The last thing is, I noticed that I read that a 200 groups, 200 strong contingent of Black Lives Matter militiamen marched through Stone Mountain Park in Georgia this weekend.
Yes.
And they were accosting whites and demanding reparations, and also calling out white militias. They wanted to come out and fight them, and I had to laugh at that. You know, if you had any experience with militias, you know that no white militia would come out in the open and march down the street and try to fight another militia face to face. They'll break off into groups and they'll cut your ribbons using guerrilla warfare tactics. Those 200 blacks would have been cut down to about 100 in about 5 minutes. It would have taken no more than about 25 militiamen operating in the guerrilla tactics to do that.
Yeah.
Second, you know, they were carrying a lot of 22 long rifles. Some semi-autos. Those militias are carrying 223s. They're carrying AK-47s. They're carrying very powerful long-range bolt-action rifles. They cut those people to shreds. They've been training for years, and they've been trained to use guerrilla tactics. They're not going to come out in the open and parade down a street and then take on another militia face-to-face. They're smarter than that. And again, a smaller contingent of these white militias in Georgia that have been training would have cut them to pieces in about 5 minutes. It wouldn't take very long. So these BLM idiots who are running around and thumping their chest, claiming that they want to take on the white militias, better watch out, because the white militias have been training for a long time. They are well trained. They have nice community. They have very sophisticated communication systems, and they know guerrilla tactics very well. So if we get into a shooting war between black and white here, I'm going to give the edge, the decided edge to the white militias, because those guys have been at this for a long time. Plus, they're also many of their members are former military, and so they brought in this military training, and they've incorporated that into their tactics.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see what happens if that ever happens. So, anyway.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen, obviously, but yeah, I think it's a good analysis. One thing you need to be careful of is those white militias are often infiltrated by FBI.
Yeah, they are, and believe it or not, they know who the FBI members are in many cases. Yeah, and they've isolated them. They're watching them as well. They don't. Some of them have been successfully infiltrated, but many of them have been infiltrated. But they know who they are, and they're watching them. And they're probably going to use the FBI members to run a disinformation campaign against the FBI, so that the FBI doesn't know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to put to bed the controversy over the pronunciation of Ghislaine Maxwell's name. So when you see the name, that GH, think of it as kind of a ZHE or a JHE.
Yeah.
And it's not a hard G. For example, the French name Georges, that's soft. The
yes.
French G in front of a vowel or in front of an H is a soft G, not a hard G. Ghislaine. Okay, and she's the only Ghislaine I've ever seen I wouldn't chase.
Okay.
all the others are very attractive ladies. But But they were all
well, I understand they've already put out a stamp, with her face on it, and it's your basic flat rate postage, unless you want to lick it, and then it costs $5.
Yeah, I heard she's about ready to sing like a bird right now.
Oh, yeah.
They hauled her into New York today. She was
Yep.
she was in shock. Apparently, she said, "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening." And the word is that she's so distraught that she's going to sing like a bird. So I bet that there are a lot of other people, starting with Bill Clinton, because she apparently is willing to talk about Clinton, but not so much about Prince Andrew, because she apparently is a close friend of Prince Andrew. But she wants to talk about Bill Clinton.
All right. Well, Kelly, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We got more callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here to Rick in Montana. Hello, Rick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Where's that Minnesota? Rick, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Rick.
Hey, this is Mitch in Minnesota.
This is who in Minnesota? It's going fine. Thank you very much.
Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to talk to you about the face masks and stuff. But first, I wanted to start off with I guess we're living in like the real life like Truman Show, right?
Yes.
The Truman Show. Remember that movie?
Yes.
I mean, basically, that's what we're living in, right? I mean, if you think about it, crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. It was a very popular movie.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's like, he and Jim Carrey's a character himself. You can look him up. He's part of the New World Order if you look at it. But they're tearing down the statues, Mike, and then they want to like erect statues of what? Prince? Did you see that one?
Yeah, I saw that one. They wanted to put Prince up there. What are the statues of Marx? What was some of the other crazy?
And then Prince died of a fentanyl overdose, just like Big Floyd, the landlord, right?
Yes.
Big Floyd, the guy that he was like a porn star, right, Mike? That was his name. He was Big Floyd, the landlord. That's what he went by, and he died of fentanyl too.
Dangerous stuff.
Crazy, man. I know, right? I mean, look, and then they were all part of the scam. I don't know, but I don't know, Mike. But I heard a caller earlier, Dustin from New York, or I think
New Jersey.
Okay. He said that he was from Ukraine, and he was Jewish.
No, he said his family ancestry is from Ukraine, but that he was born in the United States.
Oh, okay. I maybe because he could probably look up the Holodomor, like a real Holocaust, right?
Yes.
And then I don't know. And when I listen to your callers, you guys always have good callers, and I listen to your show, Mike. I like it, but at the end of the day, Trump, he flew on Epstein's jet.
Yes.
He was longtime friends with him.
Like the Lolita Express.
Yeah, and Trump flew on the jet. So, I mean, and then if it's just crazy. I don't know, Mike. I just Trump flew on Epstein's jet, okay?
Yes.
I don't know how you're gonna like do some mental gymnastics to try to turn it around that he's not part of the scam and the New World Order, and I don't know how you're gonna pull that off. Like, there's no way.
I'm not even gonna try. Huh? I mean, the fact that he was on that plane. I mean, it's not like they were doing, business class service to Miami or something like that. He was on that plane for a reason.
Exactly. And then, I mean, I don't know, Mike. Here, I'll put it this way, I'll stop. I'll let the other callers come in. The guy has a nice channel on YouTube. His name is Spiro. I forget. It's Spiro something. I can I posted in the links or whatever, but we're not able to do that anymore because Ron Gibson is a faggot and he just disabled all the comments. But he called the jail. He called the jail for Ghislaine, what is it, Ghislaine Maxwell, and then he put in her name and all this stuff, and it showed where, yes, she supposedly was in jail, but it didn't say anything about bond or anything about the charges, and everything was blocked. So you don't even know if this lady got locked up. I mean, I saw a video.
She's in a Brooklyn jail, according to the last report I heard, and it's not the same one where Epstein was.
The guy called. The guy Spiro here. I don't know if I can even bring it up right now because I'm on my phone. But if you look it up, he called the jail, and then he put in her name, and then he put in like her asking for booking and all this stuff. It said that her name was registered, but there was no information about bond or any of the charges that she got.
I can imagine.
Just like. Go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
I imagine that they're trying to keep a close watch on that information in order to keep her alive. The charges have already been published in the newspaper. There are 6 of them, including conspiracy to transport a minor for sexual purposes. There may be a new charge added for rape.
Mike, who controls the newspapers? Come on, man.
Okay, so what are you trying to say here?
I'm not trying to say anything. I was just pointing out different things that I saw, and I'll just get your opinion on it, and I appreciate it. And then, I don't know, Mike, Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a Mossad agent, right?
We think so.
Robert Maxwell.
Okay, listen. Okay, Mitch, I need to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back after these 2 words. There's more phone calls. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome back to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, good day to you, Michael. That last caller, Mitch, he brought Jim Carrey up. I believe Jim Carrey's a devil worshiper. I believe a lot of these people that are flying on Epstein's jet were either atheists or devil worshipers. There's a long, long list of them. So we'll see how this is going to pan out. It's going to be amazing to watch it go unfold if everything works out. But I think Epstein may be still alive on the beach in Israel somewhere. Wouldn't doubt if that guy Epstein's still living.
Yes.
So I don't know what's going on with this, but I will say this, Michael. Getting back to what's really perplexing me today is it was a black guy that plotted into those 2 white liberal girls in Seattle, okay?
Yeah.
You had the black soldier, Fort Hood, who killed a Mexican woman, cut her up to pieces, and he had a lesbian girlfriend, I guess. That was a weird story. I don't know if you really got in depth on that. But I can tell you this, Michael, this whole thing is unfolding, and your one caller that you just had a couple of calls back was talking about the militias, and what's going on right now is really perplexing to me because, if these guys that did this were white, it would be in the news 24/7. They're literally trying to start a race war. But if they keep messing around with the whites in this country, which are in the majority, so as some of your listeners understand, we're the majority. They keep messing around, they're going to be playing with dynamite. I'm telling you. So they better back off. Trump needs to get tough as nails. And the one guy is calling about Trump was on Epstein's plane. Yeah, I'm sure he was. Do whatever. I don't know. Where's the proof? If he was, he was. Clinton was on there. Obama was probably on there. Obama's getting all this money from Epstein and all these liberal freak shows. So let's not pick on Trump here. Let's look at Epstein. What he did with probably Obama, with Biden, all these other criminals. So it's not just one-way street here. Okay? Now, the filth that's coming out of the leftist kosher media is disgusting. You got a homosexual drudge who's nothing but a filthy race baiter. And, I'm looking at what's going on right now, Michael. The asphalt is telling the gasoline what to do, and the gasoline's taking it until it gets ignited. And once it's ignited, it's going to be unbelievable because, here in South Florida, they had in the paper, Michael, yesterday, that some of these truckers don't want to come down here. If any police get defunded and the police departments are not funded, they will not deliver food. Or they might not deliver the fuel. So people better wake up and look at here. If you start bringing the food into these cities and you don't bring the fuel into these cities, You're looking at all-out race war or anarchy, whatever word you want to call it. Okay? These rabid dogs, Antifa and Black Lives Matter need to be put down like a rabid dog or a rabid animal. I want you to use a dog, an animal. Okay? They got to be put down like a wild animal that's rabid, rabid. And we got to stop this insanity. As far as you have a couple callers, they don't want to believe who is the majority. I want to know who is the majority of this country, Michael. Seriously. I'd like to know who is in the majority. The whites, the blacks, the Hispanics? Who? Who is in the majority? Who's running the show here? The Zog? 1% of the population on the Supreme Court? I mean, it's unbelievable. We've allowed them to take over the narrative of our country, taking out our monuments, our statues, do you want to take the Bible out of the church? No. It's got to be dealt with immediately. It's got to be stood up to and say enough is enough. We're not going to let you nincompoops. Michael, let me ask you this. Why are 2 million Africans coming over here in the last 10 years? Why? If this is such a hateful country and we're so racist to whitey, why are 2 million Africans coming from Africa to the United States right now? Why do we owe them reparations for what? For 155 years ago, 160 years ago? They were freed 160 years ago to slaves.
Yes.
Earlier. And we got to hear this nonsense every day. Oh, no, you're lucky you got this is the greatest country. You better be darn proud that you had white people who gave you trains, planes, and automobiles. And the other thing that came to this country and to this world, the Chinese didn't invent. What did the Chinese really invent? Paper? And what else? What other few things? Gunpowder? What else did they after that? Did they invent?
Watertight compartments on ships, early metal plating. Sorry, you asked.
Well, the Arabs gave us arithmetic, didn't they? They gave us math. So every culture contributed. Every culture contributed to this world. But, when they want to single out one culture like the white race, just my rear end, Mike. I'm not going to put up with it. I won't tolerate it. Because it's nonsense. We are the majority. We are the ones that invented most of the greatness of this world. Okay? Yeah, we had some flaws, but goodness sake, we always corrected them. And, I watched Washington last night on the History Channel again. It's fantastic. What he went through. What John Adams went through. What all these great patriots went through to become to write the Constitution, to have this great nation of ours. It's absurd. We're allowing a narrative being dictated by a minority, a very small minority, to tell the majority what to do, and it's going to stop. It's going to stop soon. You watch. One way or another, it's going to stop. That's all I can tell you. But, getting back to the black guy who killed the Mexican woman, if that would have been white in the news right now, all day, if it would have been a white guy that just ran over those 2 white girls, the liberal white girls in Seattle, it'd be all over the news right now. It's just crickets, Michael. Crickets. All I'm hearing is crickets out of the leftist communist media. When it was a white guy, boy, they didn't want to go off the charts. It's like a rocket's blasting off. But when it's one of the blacks or one of the Jews or any of these other minority groups, it's crickets, crickets, crickets. And how can that be when they're the minority? It should be that the whites control all the major networks in this country. We're not controlling the major newspapers, the major news outlets. We got guys like Sludge, Matt thinking Sludge, on there controlling the narrative of our dictate of our country through the media. No, the majority should be ruling like the NASCAR. Now, what's going to happen when one of these white drivers run that Bubba Wallace into the wall? They're going to call him a racist pig because he slammed them into the wall like Earnhardt and all these other old drivers used to do? Good old boys? No, this has got to stop. Look what's going to happen in the NFL. The NFL is going to fold up in 2 years. You watch what I tell you. I will never watch another NFL game. I guarantee that. No way. I wouldn't donate a damn dime to the NFL. The National Felony League. That's what it should be called. No way. NASCAR has gone to crap. I tell you right now, because they took that Confederate flag down, their participation is going to lose 60% in 1 to 2 years. You'll see what I'm talking about in the future. You'll be on your show talking about it. I'm telling you right now, people are waking up. Your one caller's absolutely right. They're not only they're messing with, if they keep messing with the white majority in this country, it's gonna be curtains. It's gonna be disastrous. It's gonna have to stop and desist. And the Zog, Michael, let me ask a question. I'll hang up in a minute. I know you got other callers. Who would the Zog be teamed up with if there was an all-out race war? Or no, I wouldn't use that word. That's the wrong way. A civil war, Michael. If there was a civil war in this country, who would? That's what I want to put this. I'm sorry I said that. If there was a civil war in this country for ideology, who would the Zionists team up with? The left or the right, in your opinion?
The right.
You believe so? Well, okay. Yep. I'm a little skeptical on that. I don't know. I can be like in between there because I don't know, because the way they're running this plot right now, it's like, you may be right because they're trying to start this, but then once it starts, they're going to switch over to the right. Zog. I don't know. It's up in the air for me. I have to throw that coin on that. But and one more thing, Mike, and I'll let you go. I know you got other callers. I hope you have some great callers calling. One more thing I want to say is about Antifa and Black Lives Matter. We never got to the real source who's funding them.
Well, we know that recently, at least, George Soros was funding Black Lives Matter until Black Lives Matter voiced criticism of Israel, and then Soros apparently pulled the plug.
Well, I don't know why these people are not being arrested. How do you bring in bricks into cities by the truckloads and dumping them there so these rioters can take the bricks and start smashing store windows and stuff? There should be some severe persecution. These people should be in prison for 20 years, man. The murders that's going on. Look at Chicago over the weekend, Mike. Did you see the murder rate in Chicago?
Yes. It was ugly.
That was only for Friday and Saturday. That's not counting Sunday. That was just Friday and Saturday's figures, not Sunday. You had Sunday, and I think it was 77.
Yes.
I think it was 6 young people murdered under 15. Is that correct?
I heard a total of 8 were killed. 77 people shot, 8 died.
Yes. Okay. And of course, but nobody ever talks about in the media about these wounded. What kind of severe injuries do these people have with gunshot wounds? Paraplegics, can't walk again, losing an arm. I mean, lifelong injuries that, a bullet can sustain to a human body. These people never recover, basically. Like the girl that got ran over by the guy in the car. The one's dead. You think the other girl's going to be in good shape at 70 miles an hour? What was it, a Jaguar the guy was driving?
Yeah.
I mean, those injuries are catastrophic, and somebody's got to pay for all that. Just like somebody's going to have to pay to put the statues up. Like they took the Columbus statue and they threw it in, Maryland River there, or Maryland Lake.
Yes.
I mean, that's tolerated? No, these people should be severely punished. Mike, I tell you, and I got to go, but I got to let you go. I know you got a call. If these people pulled any of this crap in Israel, what do you think the Israeli government would be doing? They would shoot them with live ammunition. They would shoot them with live ammunition or use rubber bullets to shoot them right in the head. Because the Israelis would not play with the Arabs if they were to try to burn down Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. But we're allowing that here, and we're the majority. The Caucasians are the majority, and we've got to take this nonsense. And our young kids are punks. These young white kids are soft. Their hands are like putty. They're not tough. They're not pioneers. They're pussies, like I told you. And they're being brainwashed. They don't even know history. Jesse Waters had it on his show Saturday night. These kids don't even know their history, Mike.
Yep.
They're so sissified and so brainwashed. It's pathetic. What's going on with the white young culture? These white males are a bunch of pansies. I mean, they've become pansies. It's terrifying. How pansy? They don't even know their history. Half these people don't even know John Adams was the second president of the United States. I mean, they can't name it. They can't name the fourth president. They don't even know what President Lincoln was. And now they want to tear Lincoln's statue down. Think about it. It's horrific what's going on in this country. And it starts with these elementary schools all the way to college. They have been so brainwashed by Zog. It's pathetic. They want Sal Lewinsky's rules for radicals, and that's where I'll leave it at that. This is what this country turned out to be. Sal Lewinsky rules for radical, and Hillary Clinton's one of the big participators. And all these other leftist communist Democrat demonic demon rats. That's what I call them, the demonic demon rats. And like I said, that Ghislaine Maxwell, she's got so much dirt on all these devil worshippers and these atheists. You'll be mind-blowing when you find out how much filth she has on a lot of these people. And a lot of them are basically atheists. I think maybe in some ways they're worse than a devil worshiper because they don't believe in nothing. I don't mean they're both nuts, but it's crazy what's happening in the United States, man. And if the Christian people in this country don't wake up, we're definitely going to lose this country.
Okay, and Tom, you do remember that I'm an atheist, right?
Well, if you're an atheist, you got to believe in something, Mike. If you're in a foxhole, you're going to say
I believe I'll have a drink.
Well, there you go. Have a drink. So you believe in something.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. And we're going to switch over to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Tom done?
Yes, Tom is done.
Sometimes I think you should just replay. You could replay that last 15 minutes. It's just like every other call of his. He's just packed with non sequiturs. It's kind of like that Niagara Falls, slowly I turn. Step by
Yes.
step. Now, listen, I wanted to actually address about Dustin's comments concerning the tearing down of the Columbus statues. I'm half Italian, but I never really make my identity or make a big stink out of my identity. I never, because I'm half Italian. Right? But anyway, Columbus is a representative of white people coming to this continent.
Yes.
That's what it is. And so it's really an attack on whites. Now, Columbus did some what were normal but unethical things when he came over here, what we consider unethical, but back in those days it was perfectly normal. And I'd also like to remind people that Columbus was not really loved or a unifying commander of his men. Remember, there were 3 different ships. He was running all kinds of, all with their passions. They almost had mutinies.
Yes.
Right? And so when he lets these men that he couldn't even control out of his ships when they landed, they're going to perpetrate all kinds of criminal activity in these natives, because many of these sailor types, they're just complete scum of the earth. And so he couldn't control them. So all kinds of things. And who are you going to blame it all on? They blame it on Columbus. See?
Yes.
But really, he is a great man. I might point out he's was a redhead and blue-eyed. There's a good book on the topic. It's called The Dogs of God by James Reston, and I suggest that to your audience. I enjoyed it. And so nonetheless, I think, to me, if the people in Camden, New Jersey are all of a sudden worked up and upset about the statue of Columbus, there's no reason to have to tear it down and destroy it in a mob. Just take it to your city council, remove it peacefully, and guess what? I'm not really against it in the sense that, because it lets me know that the people of Camden don't like Italian Americans, don't like white history, and really white people can't be safe there.
Yeah.
In other words, if a statue of Columbus isn't allowed in Camden or in Baltimore, then it really, me walking around in Camden and Baltimore might be unwelcomed also. So to me, it's a sense of with all these statues and Confederate statues, they're all white men.
Yeah.
And so when people of color and these Marxist types tear down these statues, they're really saying it's not a white district anymore, and whites are not safe in those areas, in those districts. And so in a sense, I like it in a sense, because now I know, don't go to that area, don't spend my money there, don't do business with those people there, avoid those people there, and that they are unworthy of looking upon the art and the statues of Christopher Columbus. Because remember, many of these statues are fantastic art. They're fantastic. They're beautiful. Like the one of St. Louis in St. Louis.
Yes.
Beautiful statue of St. Louis, right?
Yes.
And so if they want to tear down this beautiful art, like I said, don't tear it down. Don't throw it in the river. Just take it away peacefully. Ship it to a district where the people will appreciate it. And because the people in that district are such savages, they won't tolerate high art in their midst. That lets me know these are the people to ignore and stay away from. And that's why I'm not really so worked up about this issue. Although I would like to point out, you know how I like to stir up the red state boys.
Yeah.
Notice, I've only heard about one statue being removed in the state of New Jersey, and that was a Columbus statue down in Camden.
Yes.
Right. But really, where all the statues, fellas, are being torn down, and I looked them up on Wikipedia, a lot are getting torn down in North Carolina, Virginia, the formerly red states. As the demographic tide turns, and the people in those districts don't want white statues, and they really don't want white people. That's what it's all about. And so we need to take on the statue issue reasonably and understand what it's all about. And to me, it's a tacit hatred to the heroes of whites.
Yes.
And therefore it's an overt hatred of whites. And I urge our white friends and people who identify with whites and like whites to consider which side you're going to take sides with, and to realize, we don't have to get in a gunfight over it yet, although we should prepare. We should have to start a civil war over this, because the country's plenty enough big where you can move to the district of your choice, right? But we have to understand that these people do not like us. They hate us. And one of the most important things to do is to vote with your feet and your dollars. Don't complain about the media. Don't complain about Sumner Redstone or Disney or whoever it is. If you're giving them money and going to Disney World or paying your cable fees, we have to pull our money out and take our money away from these districts, away from these white haters, and away from these people who won't tolerate Confederate statues. And on that note, thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you very much here, and we're going to switch over to Pat in Fort Worth. Hello, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, the guy calling about the earlier about the Christopher Columbus. Actually, he was a Christian, and a church. I don't know if I can talk anymore now. It's been waiting so long. A church translated all of his diaries from Spanish.
Yes.
And it's called The Light of the Glory. You can find it all over Amazon, all over. Cheap, updated, probably ebook, whatever. And he knew he was on a mission of God after they translated that, because he's a Spanish paid for it, right?
Yes.
And he. So anyway, I'm just telling you that I think these people are anti-Christian. That's and that Black Lives Matter. They've even got a video right now, and they're talking about, they only tell one side of the story, of everything. And they do tell that the 3 black women started this somewhere in 2013 or 2014. And word has it, the main one that looks the meanest was a lesbian, and she's got on a T-shirt that says bulletproof. I don't think so. So I don't know what she means. Maybe she does worship the devil. But they do tell that of their video. But whenever they tell about Rodney King, they show the police just beating the heck out of him. But they never do say that was what they did every 5 minutes, all day long. But after they subdued him, then they started showing the first 5 minutes where he beat the heck out of all the policemen. He was beating them all up. And he's the one that stopped the riots. He is the one. He said, "Can't we just all get along?" And they had no reason to fight anymore. But Maxine Waters, why hasn't she been prosecuted for inciting a riot? She said, "Get out there and show your ire." But I'll tell you what, those Chinese people that met him at the door with a gun, they're still there. They just went on. Yes. It wasn't worth getting killed over. I won't say nothing about Stone Mountain, how people in Georgia have never got over Shermanburg in Georgia. They haven't got over it, because I live there. I know. I've been to Stone Mountain many times to get over the fact that I worked at a black hospital getting people blood for all day long. I was worn out, and I went up there fishing. I know all about how Georgians feel, whatever. I'll let you go. Thanks.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Thomas in Florida. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thank you for having me on. I know I haven't got much time. I think the BLM ought to go and do a research and find out who actually brought them here to America or responsible. And they will, if they want care to do the research, they will find out that Jewish money pretty much was about 90% of all the funded all the voyages to bring the blacks off of the west coast of Africa into South America, into the Caribbean, and to the United States. And if they want one of the more stellar, but certainly not the only family, was the Aaron Lopez family, Aaronlopez, a very prominent, very wealthy man in Newport, Rhode Island, where incidentally the very first synagogue was built in the United States. And he and his descendants apparently were responsible for over 900 voyages, 900 voyages, bringing slaves. Slave markets were closed on the Saturday, which is the Jewish Sabbath. If they want reparations, there's plenty of deep pockets they could probe. It would be all the Jews in the United States as well as the country of Israel. And someone should let that loose into the BLM narrative, and they could really start finding out where they might get their money if that's what they really want, reparations, and we wouldn't have to pay any of it.
Well, there's also the fact that most of those black slaves back then were sold into slavery by other blacks, that made war on other tribes and took them prisoner and then sold them to the slave traders. It's not like the white people invaded Africa and started grabbing people and shipping them to the New World. They just showed up on the beaches with trade goods, and they were already slaves when they bought and sold them.
Yeah, there's an interesting guy. He's quite smart. He's a black guy named Thomas Sowell, Sowell,
Yes,
I think.
I've heard of him.
He did quite a thing on the slavery, and he pointed out that slavery was around long before the time that they were brought to this. In fact, it was a fairly new thing with the invention of a boat that could take them across the oceans. The Arabs were going down, and
Thomas, I got to let you go.
More slavery.
Thomas, I got to let you go. I'm sorry. There's the music. It's the end of the program. I apologize to those callers who didn't get on the air today. Just try back tomorrow. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.